welcome to my show, Let's Talk About History. I'm here today at the Slater Museum. Hello, welcome to my show, Let's Talk About History. I'm here today. Hello, welcome to my show, Let's Talk About History. My name is Maria Jolicoeur. I'm here today at Slater Museum at Norwich Free Academy. The Norwich Historical Society is airing a lecture on Lafayette Foster. So we'll go inside and listen to the lecture. I hope you enjoy my show. Thank you.
Warshauer is a professor of history at Central Connecticut State University. He's authored 4 books, and more importantly, he currently serves as co-chair of the Connecticut Civil War Commemoration Commission. And he's been to Norwich several times. He's a good friend of Norwich. He loves Norwich as much as I do. So it's a real pleasure to have Matt. Please welcome Matt.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? I just want to tell you before I begin that I've been set up by Bill. He's walking away gleefully. He put me up against the Yukon Husky women. He made it rain. And he turned me on to Lafayette Foster, who I did not know a lot about. And it's a much larger subject than I could ever have imagined. Before I get going on Lafayette Foster, I want to just say a couple of things. One, I do love Norwich, and actually my wife and I have talked seriously once our children fly the coop in a few years, we would love to move to this area of the state. This is a beautiful, beautiful town. And I've spoken in this hall a couple of times before, and they don't make places like this any longer. So to have the opportunity to come and speak here is very wonderful, and I would like to echo Bill's very kind request of you to support the Norwich Historical Society. If you are not a member, you really need to join, and you need to support events like this, because if you all don't do it, who's going to? That becomes the big question. With that, he mentioned that I am the co-chair of the Connecticut Civil War Commemoration Commission, and it has been, it feels like a long road, but every time I think, geez, I've been working on the commemoration for 6 years, 2 years to get it started, 4 years almost to the day now that it's been going. And then I always think, well, I got to go home and go to sleep at night. The soldiers were out in the field for 4 years. And I try and keep that in perspective. It was a momentous and terrible time in our nation's history. And it is, for the commemoration is starting to come to a close. We began it on April 12th, firing on Fort Sumter in 2011 with 8 cannons lined up at the Capitol building in the morning and fired them off. We were the northern response to the southern start of the war. This Thursday, we will have another single cannon at the Capitol building in the morning on April 9th for Lee's surrender. It will fire 4 times to signify 4 years of the war. And as I've been telling people this, and with the budget crisis that's going on in the state, many people have suggested which way we should turn the cannon. That will be one of their big conclusionaries. I'll be giving a talk at the Old State House at noon on Thursday to kind of close out the commemoration. And then the really final big act to the commemoration is, of course, Abraham Lincoln's death. And this city has a special connection to Lincoln. I have been down here on many occasions. You did an unbelievable job, not only with the Freedom Bell, but with the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. I was down here for that day, January 1. I almost said 1863. This is what you do when you're a Civil War historian, 2013. And one of the things that I felt was very important was to properly commemorate Lincoln's death. And so I wanted to let you all know that on a week from tonight at 7:30 p.m. up in West Hartford, Connecticut, at the University of St. Joseph, I am producing a Lincoln assassination performance. And we have actors who are going to be, 99% of it is all from the original documents. Booth's motivations, Secretary of War Edwin Stanton's obsession to capture the killer. So if you're interested in that, please just go onto the Civil War commemoration site. If you just type in to your internet search engine, Connecticut Civil War commemoration, you'll come right up to the commemoration page and all the information is there. So if you're interested in the history of Lincoln's assassination, it's really going to be a tremendous performance. So, enough plugging. With that, Lafayette Foster. There is such a tremendous amount that can be said about this man, and a lot that needs to be researched. I really didn't know much about Lafayette Foster. I knew that he was a senator. I knew that he was sort of a Lincoln Whig, Lincoln Republican. I did not know how devout a Christian he was. I did not know the extent of his legal practice in Norwich. I did not know the extent of his time in the General Assembly in the state of Connecticut, where he was Speaker of the House for a number of years. I did not know the extent of his senatorial career. I did not know the fact that he came back to Norwich in his retirement, ended up being elected back to the General Assembly again, which I'll talk about, was sort of ceremoniously chosen as Speaker of the House to honor him. And then was offered a permanent position to teach, to live in New Haven and to teach at Yale Law School, which he at first turned down because he didn't want to live anyplace else but Norwich. And he ultimately did end up traveling periodically to go to Yale and lecture. Any one of these subjects is a subject that is ripe for research and for publication. I didn't mention the love affair that he had with his second wife and the extensive letters that are at the Brown University, where he went to school at Brown College. It's an amazingly deep history that Lafayette Foster has, and I'm truly amazed that nothing's been done on it. And there literally is nothing written, no articles, no books. There are mentions of Foster in various books, but no detailed study has taken place on Foster. And I know Bill is hoping that I'm going to write one. Let me sleep for a few weeks after the commemoration is over, and we'll see where we can go. So what I decided to do is focus on Lafayette Foster's stand against the slave power and his views on the institution of slavery. And this, to me, worked because of the commemoration that I've been working on, and because I focused so much on the history of slavery, and especially the history of slavery and abolitionism in the state of Connecticut. And so studying Foster from this vantage point really worked for me, but I understand and I know that there is a lot more out there to be done with Foster. So what I'd like to do is give you a sort of a quick chronological background of Foster's life so you can get a feel for the many things that he did. And then I'm going to go into his views on slavery, his views on the slave power, which I'll describe what I mean by that, the difference between slavery and the slave power. And then I want to talk about, I'm going to do a bit of reading to you. I want you to hear Foster's words, especially the many speeches that he gave in regards to the history of what's leading up to the Civil War, and then what he does in the midst of the Civil War. He is not merely some senator sitting safely in Washington City. He goes out to the battlefield to see what is happening to his nation, and he is, in many ways, I think, devastated by it. And so I want to read some of his words to you tonight. So, his father, he was born November 22nd, 1806. His father was Daniel Foster, who served with distinction during the American Revolution and fought at the battles of White Plains, Stillwater, and Saratoga. Foster's mother was Hannah Standish, a descendant of Miles Standish, so he goes way back into our colonial history. His mother was Wealthia Ladd, described as a lady possessed of more than ordinary intellectual gifts and remarkable energy, who is connected by blood with many of the leading colonists in this section of our state. He's educated in the common schools, and at the age of 16, he studies under the Reverend Abel Flint of Hartford. He then, in 1825, he enters Brown College, which is what becomes Brown University. Within 3 years, he graduates from there at the head of his class. Foster is nothing if not an intellect. From 1828 to 1829, he teaches school in Providence, and in the spring of 1829, he begins the study of law in Norwich under Calvin Goddard. And if you know Calvin Goddard's name, he was one of the high Federalists in the state of Connecticut, and was very much involved in the Hartford Convention and in the movement against the Republican Party in the time. So he's a very, very well-known attorney in the state. Foster then moves to Centerville, Maryland to teach. He is admitted there to the Maryland bar to practice law, but that is not where he wants to reside. He wants to come home, back to where he grew up. And so in the fall of 1831, he returns to Connecticut, and he is admitted to the New London County Bar so that he can practice in this area. He ultimately opens up a law office in Hampton, Connecticut, but he soon returns to Norwich. Again, he feels this incredible tie to Norwich, and this is noted by him in a number of his letters and in a number of the obituaries that are written about him at the time of his death, that he felt drawn to Norwich. And of course, he is buried here in the Antique Cemetery. So he opens up a very, very successful law practice in Norwich. And again, this is an area of study that someone could spend a lot of time just studying his law practice and the many, many cases that he tried in the courts here. On October 2nd, 1837, he marries Joanna Boylston Landman. She's the daughter of the Honorable James Landman, a judge of the Connecticut Supreme Court and a former senator who served from 1825 to 1831 in the United States Senate. They have 2 daughters and a son. All of them die at a very early age, and they are all buried here in Norwich. This is one of the reasons that he felt so compelled to stay in this region, that he did not want to leave where his children were buried. His wife, Joanna, dies in April of 1859. In the 1830s, Foster begins getting involved in politics. He becomes very interested in politics. Not uncommon for a lawyer. Many lawyers were involved in politics. You see that from 1835 to 1839, he edits the Norwich Republican, which is a Whig newspaper. The Whig Party is formed largely in opposition to Andrew Jackson and his policies. That Foster creates a newspaper at this time shows the extent to which he is in fact involved in politics, because newspapers in the 19th century are not independent in the least. Virtually all newspapers are tied to a particular political party, and of course the Norwich Republican under Foster is tied directly to the Whig Party. Then he actually decides to get involved in politics. He leaves the Norwich Republican in 1839. It's taking up a tremendous amount of his time, and he decides that he believes he can get more done acting as a representative in the Connecticut General Assembly. And he serves in the General Assembly from the 3rd District here for a number of years. And you can see here, 1839, 1840, 1846, 47, 48, 54, and then again he comes back after his senatorial career and goes back into the General Assembly in 1870. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But in the midst of all of this, he is still practicing the law. So the whole time that he is a member of the Whig Party in the Connecticut General Assembly, he is still actively involved in his legal career here in Norwich. In 1847, he is elected Speaker of the House in the Connecticut General Assembly, which is a sign of how much Foster is respected by those within his party and within the state of Connecticut. In 1850 and 51, he runs unsuccessfully to be the governor of the state. Both of those years he runs against Thomas Seymour. Seymour has one major advantage over Foster, and that is that he was a war